And much like the Stoics would say, fastest way to change how you think about something is just to change how you look at it. Change how you look at this. You can't change it. You can't not be ADHD or autistic, but you can change how you think about it.
Amazingly successful entrepreneurs around us, and Ruby Wax sitting with us, and Simon Squibb, and there's neurodivergence raging all there, right? But actually, it still seems to be something that people are scared to talk about. How are you unravelling that?
I'm hearing both in you and then in the environment you're trying to create for women, especially women who are neurodivergent, is to be fearless about who you are and then become the leader that you can be.
I remember reading the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she talks about fear as a passenger in a car. It can be the passenger, but it can't be the driver. You know, you are in charge of the sat-nav. You've got to be taking charge of the direction. It can't even alter the radio station, but it's got to be brought with you on the journey, because fear never really disappears. I wonder if you ever get fearless, or if you just get more comfortable with bringing it along for the ride. I
think the point you just made there is that people are dealing with a lot. A 1% incremental change in how that person's life is improved is not 1% to them, is it?
Jess Rad, welcome.
Thank you.
Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too.
You're basically here because of the journey you've gone on with your daughter. So I thought we'd start there. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah. My daughter was identified as neurodivergent age 9. And I feel like that was 9 years too late. Like so many people traversing through life, like not getting that identification and self-discovery is really challenging. And it was only through navigating that diagnosis process, but also the EHCP process, an education healthcare plan in the UK, a legal plan to kind of support her in her education, did I start to explore ADHD. And it was actually my mum, as I started to look into it, was like, hang on a minute, Jess, this does sound a little bit like you. I have been called lastminutejess.com since I was 14. You know, I'd find my phone in the fridge or the shoe cupboard if it wasn't attached to me. And yeah, that journey of exploration, I've only been on for a few years, but it's been, one of the great catalysts of positive change in my life.
And you'd not had any kind of crossover with ADHD before that. So you'd gone through life well into adulthood. Yeah. It was only when your daughter and that whole journey that you opened up for you. Yeah. We hear that a lot, don't we?
We do. We you know, that's a massive failing of previous systems and previous processes. But thank goodness we're where we are now, where we're getting to a stage of a lot more awareness, and people like yourself. Give us the snapshot of, in the ADHD world, people that don't know you who are sat watching this, what is it that you do now that you're on that voyage of discovery?
In terms of my work, so I, as the founder of The Womanhood, I go into businesses to help them close their gender gaps, increase allyship, and celebrate neurodiversity. So I deliver talks, workshops, programs, and help educate businesses about what neurodiversity is, and it's always with a positive frame. So uncovering and celebrating it in females, for example, looking at that intersection with perimenopause, but always seeing it as an opportunity for businesses to see it as a competitive advantage, because they talk a lot about the spiky profile. I say it's a spikier profile. No one's flatlining, being brilliant at everything, and helping people recognize you can design your teams around people's effortless gifts. And I'm a very proud parent carer, so I'm also an ambassador for Amaze, which is a brilliant SEND charity down in Sussex. Yeah.
So you are on a journey towards an assessment for your ADHD. You've been screened. And am I right in thinking that you've undertaken the digital screening test, the QB check?
Yes, as part of that, yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, so that's, for people that don't know, you kind of have to set up a little clinical experience at home, you know, make everything boring basically around you, and then look at these coloured shapes and press it when you see two the same. And I thought, this is fine, you know, it's 20 minutes long, it'll be fine. Within 2 minutes, my legs are jiggling and I've almost fallen asleep. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And when I had the conversation with the clinical psychologist, she'd gone through all the other screeners that I'd gone through, because it was for ADHD and autism. And at this one, she said, and this one you got 99 out of 100. And I was like, oh my God, I love being a high achiever, but this is ridiculous.
The best scores you've ever had.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, that's clear. You know, it just makes total sense.
So when you got those screening results, what I'm interested here is the individual psychology. Because what we talk about a lot is when people start to understand themselves and get that validated, the understanding becomes clearer. Did that process start for you when you got those results off your clinician? Or did it help that process?
Oh, it definitely helped. I'd already done the online little tests that all came up high. I'd sent it to my family. I'm the eldest of 6. There's 5 girls, 1 boy in my family. Everyone was like, yeah. You know, close friends were like, yeah, me too. And again, as it was only my mum that was like, I don't know, Jess. She kept on at me for a whole year, didn't do anything. And then I delved into the Instagram universe. You know, I changed up my algorithm, and then I just started to see all this content. And I was like, is this not how everybody's brain works? And then I suppose when I finally got to that screening, it was just validation and confirmation. And I still want to go through the whole process, but because I'm an ADHD, I haven't done all of the steps. I think the whole process is not entirely ADHD friendly, is it? Like,
the
fill in a form.
The irony there. Now, people say that with dyslexia as well, like these complicated forms.
Yeah.
Like, surely it's frustrating. I would love to touch on leadership. I know in the build-up to filming today, we talked about how you get people together in a safe space, particularly from a business point of view, that wouldn't feel safe talking about their neurodivergence in the business environment because of judgment, because of fear of the fact that it might threaten their job or promotion. And the fact that we know sitting around this table, particularly how we met through Ideas Fest with amazing successful entrepreneurs around us, and Ruby Wax sitting with us and Simon Squibb, and there's neurodivergence raging all there, right? But actually it still seems to be something that people are scared to talk about. And whether they've been diagnosed or have a conversation with myself or watch this program and go, so much of that resonates, but I'm not going to tell it. I'm not going to show weakness. I'm not going to tell anyone. How are you unraveling that? What sort of a difference are you able to make in an environment that you sort of create with these workshops?
Yeah. So I always try and create a safe and brave space, first of all. Safe so that we don't ever share the identity of the content created and shared in that space, so people can share it freely and easily. Brave, acknowledging that there will be some discomfort, and always giving a bit of a trigger warning, showing Elizabeth Kubler's grief cycle, you know, because often whenever I speak, people are recognizing there are neurodivergence in the room, actually, often with autism. So I always talk about ADHD and autism together, actually, because there's such a high crossover. And as the great friend and campaigner Kirsty Hadley would say, ADHD is like the socially acceptable face of neurodivergence, and autism, in my opinion, needs a total rebrand, because we're still thinking of Dustin Hoffman as Rain Man. And so acknowledging that, yeah, you might identify with some of this stuff and you might tip into that denial and anger, which I've definitely been in myself. And I think you probably go through lots of times. Actually, it's not once. But if you follow it through, you get through to acceptance. And then taking them on a journey, I suppose, of recognizing the challenges and the difficulties, but then showing them the beauty and the amazing strengths that come with this neurotype. And then ultimately, for me, it's about, and especially when there's that intersection of perimenopause and neurodivergence, it's like an enforced unmasking. Mm-hmm. And I call it like it's an amazing liberation. Like, you can't mask anymore. You know, your traits are surfacing in a way that you can't control. And much like the Stoics would say, you know, the fastest way to change how you think about something is just to change how you look at it. So change how you look at this. You can't change it. You can't not be ADHD or autistic, but you can change how you think about it.
Love that. It's proper reframing.
Yeah.
It brings to mind something that happened to me last week. At the weekend, I was at a concert. Amy MacDonald, one of my favourite performers. And she, you know, when you're in a heightened emotional state, you start to hear things or feel things that you didn't unless you were in that heightened emotional state. She sang a song and she talked about being fearless and being leaders. And the actual line in the repeated verse is, "We are fearless, we are leaders." And as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing both in you and then in the environment you're trying to create for women, especially women who are neurodivergent, is to be fearless about who you are and then become the leader that you can be. And I almost feel we should anthemically have that song is a relatable piece, because some people sit in that chair and talk about their fear, their shame, their lack of willingness up until perhaps this moment to share their own neurodivergent and hide behind it. And you're trying to create a space where people are no longer doing that. And I think that's to be applauded. Does that resonate, that kind of we are fearless, we are leaders in this space with you? I feel it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And acknowledging that fear, I remember reading the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she talks about fear as a passenger in a car, and realizing that it can be the passenger, but it can't be the driver. You know, you are in charge of the sat nav. You've got to be taking charge of the direction. It can't even like alter the radio station, but it's got to be brought with you on the journey, because fear never really disappears. I wonder if you ever get fearless, or if you just get more comfortable with bringing it along for the ride.
Yeah, I love that. Is there a curious element to this as well? So what brought us together was my curiosity to learn more, which I continue to spending time with Phil, these conversations. And the fact that some people are too afraid to ask questions, too afraid to ask questions that might make them look stupid in the eyes of other people, the judgment, which goes back to the reframing. Actually, I thrive on asking questions. You know, that's how I learn. But I have curious, and I think that also nicely plays into the fact that you are creating neuro-curious.
Yes.
But is there, following on from Phil's point, is there an element of the fear side of things that might resonate with people where it's actually that's what's stopping me? Because we're all curious at school. Kids, you can see it in their whole behaviour, and at a certain period of life, it almost gets knocked out of you because of being bullied in the playground, or something happens, you go, I'm not doing that again. And I'd love to sort of always open up how that sort of continues, if you like, into adulthood, how people keep that curiosity, and how you're also going about embracing that and enhancing that.
Yeah, I think that fear of getting it wrong, or the fear of being associated with neurodiversity or disability more broadly, is preventing people from going on this amazing journey of exploration, either for themselves or someone they live, love, or work with. And when I've done work with these really big global businesses that might have employee-led networks that are for neurodiversity, I think, yes, it's so brilliant. And I'm working with companies that just at the start of that journey, which is a really, beautiful thing to be part of. But what I'm always mindful of is all the people on the periphery of that will never know, that they feel too scared to get involved in that tiny little community or that conversation. And that's where the idea of neurocurious was born, is like, how can I make something feel really accessible to the people that feel too scared to be part of that conversation? They don't want to identify with it for themselves. They're tiptoeing around it about their children, for example. But if all you need is curiosity, come and join the gang.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do get people that.
Yes.
Exactly that.
Yeah. I was at a school last night with a project that ADHD 360 involved in improving the pipeline from the school into clinic, and then getting that child back engaged in school. And there's already demonstrable proof of that happening at the school. I was talking to the teachers, 40 or 50 teachers in the room, and we were talking about the child that is curious needs to have that curiosity fed, not clamped down. And even if the clamping down is happening subliminal by correcting ADHD style behaviours, where the child is no longer going to take that risk, that gamble, and that goes forward into adulthood. We've got to change the education system to allow people to be curious when their curiosity doesn't fit the mould. There's a curiosity in a science lab with a Bunsen burner that is acceptable. But what about the curiosity that's unacceptable because of being neurodivergent? And I think that's one of the areas we can really improve our education system, isn't it? And you're doing it with grown-ups because they've been clamped down, haven't they? And talk to me about the work you do about allowing people to be curious.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that education piece, actually, because I think it's vital. I'm a parent of 2 children. I've changed both of their schools to make sure they're in spaces that feel right for them. But I also think about the teachers and the educators, actually. The last Neurocurious event I did was about the sensory experience of being neurodivergent, which I really don't think is talked enough about.
Absolutely.
And it affects your daily quality of life, often your long-term health. And I wanted to educate people about often the 3 senses that we don't talk about: vestibular, proprioception, interoception. And in that environment, we talked about teachers, we talked about children. I wanted to have that parent-carer view in that space, because it's all about the lived experience. But it was brought up about how schools are not very sensory-friendly environments for the teachers even.
Absolutely.
You've probably got a lot of neurodivergent teachers who may not know it about themselves, who are having to educate all these 30 different sensory profiles of different children, not even understanding that terminology of your sensory profile, and having their own, and not having their own needs met. I mean, that's just, a recipe for disaster, isn't it? And how wonderful if we could educate. And that's my mission. I want to get enough sponsorship for these Neurocurious events, and I'm building a library so that I can gift it to all educators as free SEND training.
That's a proper mission. You articulated that beautifully. I mean, that will resonate with a lot of people. Because I know, and we've moved schools to the point where we pulled our 2 daughters out of school to home tutor them.
Okay.
Because the pastoral care, the whole, and this is before we were even talking about anything to do with neurodivergent. And so actually then the teachers and the sort of the people running the school can get a hard time from frustrated parents looking in going, why are you not doing more? But actually there's a whole education piece there that starts with the leadership. So the fact that you're doing this, the fact that you are, and I'd love to know sort of how much progress you're getting, because when we were talking off camera, it sounded like there's some pretty big numbers and some big gatherings you're bringing together. So I think we're probably asking here, how can we help? Because communities are a big part of what you do. We met through the Ideas First community. You have your own community. What can we do, and anyone watching, listening, do to try and help on this mission?
Yeah, well, come and talk to me, basically, about it. They're bigger in-person events, but we live stream them so that they're fully accessible. And we work really hard to make the in-person experience ND friendly. So we have fidget toys. We have a traffic light lanyard system. We partner with someone to make it fully accessible. We have a quiet room. We make sure we give loads of notice about what to expect, where the front door is, if there's parking, a sensory specific space for the speakers. I work with Hatch Enterprise, who are an amazing charity that support underrepresented social entrepreneurs, and they created the UK's first launchpad program for neurodivergent and disabled entrepreneurs. And I was, really privileged to be part of that a couple of years ago. And we work so hard to make that feel fully accessible in terms of the online experience, or, giving people slides beforehand, mitigating all those little potential barriers to accessing things. We all understand needing a physical ramp for somebody in a wheelchair, but it's, that mind ramp that you need if you're neurodivergent. And so that's what I'm trying to do with Neurocurious. And actually, I've realised even just on the train up here that I think the space that I'm creating there, which is where people can fully unmask. And by the way, it's not just for neurodivergent people, it's for anybody to learn about neurodiversity, because you can't change anything if you don't have everyone in the room. So it's about allyship as well. I'm trying to create what I want to see in the world there, basically, where you can be yourself.
Come alive.
It's a little it's a little microcosm of it.
Well, if there's anything we can do within that space with you, we'd be delighted to. I want to take you back to something you touched on just earlier, the sensory experience, and how underplayed that is. Yeah. One of the things that we've been working on over the last 18 months now is the physical health issues connected to ADHD. And you just joined up some dots for me that I haven't joined up for a while. You take me right back to something. A lot of the people I work with ADHD are very, very, very nervous about going to the hairdresser or the barber. Very. And will never willingly change barber or hairdresser, because the sensory experience of having your hair cut is quite traumatizing. And then unless you feel comfortable in one place with one person doing it in the way they do it, you would not get it done. And it sounds really low level, but actually that's quite major if you're not comfortable having your hair cut.
Yes.
And then the other one is cleaning your teeth.
Yeah.
And people with ADHD and that splattering of autism, and autism people with the splattering of ADHD, the sensory experience of looking after your teeth, is not aligned to being neurodivergent, and people don't think of those things. And you're nodding your head to the point where it's about to fall off. I'm learning. Yeah, and we miss those connections. Yeah. So then imagine being the child in the home that doesn't understand and the parents don't understand. A simple thing like cleaning your teeth becomes such a battle, and becomes such a willpower battle that it becomes negative, so negative, beyond the norm. It's difficult to get any child to clean their teeth. But even into adulthood, that becomes a battle and it becomes a challenge. We're into a negative spiral just around something like having your hair cut or cleaning your teeth. And the sensory deficit, if you will, or in fact, it's the sensory hypersensitive to those sensory experiences, we don't talk about enough. And maybe nobody's going to lose their life because they're not cleaning their teeth, but if that's a constant battle for them, and oral hygiene then becomes something that affects another part of their life, and so on and so on and so on. We get a degradation of fun. We get a degradation of happiness, don't we? All because we've got a sensory experience of cleaning your teeth. So how can we do it differently? There's an amazing journey there about how people's well-being and mindfulness is actually affected by something that goes right back to something that we just do. We don't get a haircut, we go and get our teeth cleaned, and we just do it.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned haircut, because we partnered with Lush and their Lush Hair Lab, which is the world's first Lush Hair Lab. They have hairdressers in Brighton. And out the back, they have a sensory-specific space with a brilliant sensory-sensitive stylist who was a speaker for us. And they actually cut my daughter's hair, and I've never seen anyone cut hair like this. It was unbelievably gentle. They even said, if you ask me to cut hair without scissors, I'll do it. I'll find a way. And you can alter the lighting. You can, it's so beautiful. It's so accommodating, and it's so rare.
Yeah, it is. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. And it's shining a light on something that, like you say, is actually really common experience. And then there's so much shame around it, because you think, why can't I cope with this? Why is this difficult for me? You internalize all that shame, which is one of the biggest issues. And
then your self-esteem starts to come down another notch. And all we're doing is either cleaning our teeth or having a haircut. Your face is saying, I've never thought of it like this before.
But it's got other thought processes in my head. So, for example, having talked to my daughters now about some of the experience at school and some other work I've done in a kind of mental health space, children starting a new school or going from primary school to secondary school, when they're asked what their biggest fear is, it's where the toilets are. It's about getting lost. And often the leadership side and the teachers are overlooking that. They're trying to make sure that there's also other things in place, but just those very simple things, to the point where there's children, certainly in younger school, that are holding in a wee for far too long because they're terrified of asking where the toilets are, because no one thought to tell them. They've thought of everything else. Your schedule, here's your sort of all your lessons and so on. It's like just basic things. And so the basic things that then can create a behaviour where someone might be fidgeting or be distracted and not listening. Going back to this, that's why just the cleaning your teeth and the hairdressing, actually, those are the things that can dominate and be the loudest in the brain.
And if you're a teenager and you are not wanting to clean your teeth or have your hair cut, and yet the imagery of being a teenager is very powerful on look, isn't it? It's very powerful on how you dress, how you appear, and then how you present around those things as well. It's very powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's going to be chipped away at. And the psychology of this just gets stronger and stronger, doesn't it? So the work, when you said about the Lush haircutting lab, that's sensitive, I thought, wow, that makes so much sense. You say there's one in Brighton. We've got to get hold of these guys, and we've got to start to think about what can we do more, even not just talk to them about it, because these are the things that are missed in neurodivergent understanding. We're increasing our own understanding week by week doing this, aren't we? But if we can put that message out, we talk about sensitivity, but we don't actually then define what that means.
No, you're right. And actually, you asked a question earlier about helping adults, which then got reframed, rightly so, to the kids, because you've got so much to say there. But could we flip that now to the scenario of the salon being so neurodivergent friendly? What trends, if any, are you seeing that's changing in the workplace now, where the leadership and the sort of safe space, if you like, that can be created for many people that may be struggling in the working environment, but actually reframing, to use that word, how they work, how they meet deadlines, or how they interact with leadership could actually allow them to flourish?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say more
about what you're working on,
things,
right?
But this, it's very slowly starting. Obviously, we've had a bit of a return to work mandate in terms of not, reducing that flexible working, which is the one thing that everybody really wants, is just to be able to work on their terms. Because again, going back to that sensory piece, if you have to travel for an hour or two, you'd be jostled and bustled into people. You've got strip lighting on a train or something. By the time you get to work and you're expected to just suddenly perform, it's impossible.
You're exhausted.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah. It's the same with children. Like, they've got to be ready to learn, and you have to create an environment where they can be ready to learn. And it's the same with adults. So I think, baby steps are being made in terms of, changing minds. That's what I'm trying to do, is change minds in order to change cultures. I always walk people through a framework of knowledge, so tell you stuff, mindset, step into the shoes of the lived experience, and not just mine, but like a Black woman who will also be looking at the intersection of racism and being a woman, misogynoir it's called, and being neurodivergent, and talk it, then get practical, but only advocate for a 1% change. Because in all the spaces that I've held for many years now, people are here, they want to be here, the gulf is so big in between, they just don't get started. They're in overwhelm, classic ADHD, we're too overwhelmed, right? So I always say, right, I just want you to do one thing. And imagine if all of you did one thing, one little percent.
It's a line I use a lot.
So that's a cultural shift there. That's massive. Exciting.
Habit forming.
Yeah.
You mentioned something else that we talked on at the book launch recently about, we tend to talk about people who are physically disabled, people who are people of colour, therefore they've got their challenges with that, people who are neurodivergent. But of course, what we should never lose sight of is the fact there are very, very, very many people in our community who have more than one challenge presented to them. And a single approach is not going to work. And if you've got a challenge in different arenas going on, they're going to go on. They're not linear. Today, I will challenge being a Black person in a white-dominated racist community. Tomorrow, I will deal with the fact that I'm in a wheelchair and I don't get proper access to it. Oh, on Wednesday, I'll fit in a bit of neurodivergent. You can't be like that. It's a very complex world, and we're very good at dealing with the known and the seen, but we're not very good at then overlaying. And I think the point you've just made there is that people are dealing with a lot, and we don't know everything they're dealing with. And we have to become more tolerant, and a 1% incremental change in how that person's life is improved is not 1% to them, is it?
No, totally. But I'm so pleased that you have mentioned that, because I literally have a visual for that. I start with that misogynoir, that intersection of racism and sexism, but then I overlay all these others in a Venn diagram of physical disability, neurodivergence, gender fluidity, if you're queer, class, if you imagine, and I say, as to be good citizens, all of us, it's our duty to be thinking of those that are most minoritized by their identity. And actually with Neurocurious, we always have someone that falls outside of that binary definition of gender, because all the research, as we know, has been done on white boys generally. We're starting with women, but even the conversations are missing anybody that sits outside of those binary definitions. As the amazing trans artist Fox Fisher would say, gender is a playground. It's a galaxy. And it's really important that we're always thinking about those people that are most on the kind of margins there.
One of the things that we're on a journey ourselves is to remove the shame and change the narrative. You're hugely involved in your aspect of removing the shame and changing the narrative. If I throw that to you as a kind of our mission statement to close out the time we've got here, what would you say about removing the shame and changing the narrative in your work?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One, I would flip it to a positive, so we don't even talk about the negative, and I would talk about us normalising and celebrating neurodiversity, mainstreaming it, because it is mainstream. We all know neurodivergent folk, and it's only going to increase. Secondly, I was thinking about this shame, the shame that people feel about being attached to a label. One, I don't see labels, I see identity. And two, actually, I think the shame of not being able to perform or conform and do things in a way that is expected of you is far greater than any, hi, I'm ADHD or ADHD, as I would say. That's worse. Not being able to tie your shoelaces or remember where you put your phone. That shame, that's huge. This shame, that's miniature compared to that one.
I love that. I love as well that I got a voice note from you only a couple of hours ago, where we had a brief chat a couple of days ago, and I actually then said to you, have a think about what you'd like to get out of this conversation. There's one message, and it was to remove the shame and to turn into positive. And without being prompted, you asked that and you were able to. So I hope you're feeling like you're accomplishing your mission, Raina, because without you knowing it, that was the mission alignment for us. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we invite people on to have a conversation that yes, raises awareness and amplifies so many things we should be doing, but actually there's a mission to then allow people to watch, listen, and think, actually, I must be more curious. Here's a safe space. The world's not going to end if I ask these questions, and allow them to build that habit to start trying to ultimately remove the mask, if you like, and learn more about themselves. And it feels like that's been a really nice personal journey for you to go on as well. I don't know, maybe empowerment's that sort of, I mean that in the true sense of like, there's a real purpose there for you. You're helping lots and lots of other people. Do you have a specific kind of mission or achievement you'd like to make happen out of this? So talk about those small steps. There's lots you'd like to change, but is there one thing, because this flips back to how we might be able to help, is there one thing that you can see would be a catalyst that would change lots of other things?
Well, the vision I have is that you can go into a coffee shop and say, hi, I have a black Americano and I'm ADHD. And for you to have no shame or stigma about sharing that, and for the person on the receiving end to have some idea about what that means. So I might not make eye contact in the way that you expect, and you don't think anything of it, for example. Or you ask how I am, and I actually tell you how I am, because I'm ADHD, rather than saying I'm fine, which I'm not. That's the vision. The mission, how we do that, I guess it's, Neurocurious is a not-for-profit event series. It's not about going into businesses. It's not about making money. It's about changing society. That's what I want to do. So it's how can I really extend that across the country, really scale it. That's
brilliant. Well, that's probably a great way for us to end, but we're in. We're in to help, that's for sure. We've got a tribe of our own to bring to you, and community we can help.
And let's help people be fearless so they can become leaders.
Yes.
And let's do that. Great interview. Loved it. Thank you very much,
Jess.
Thank you for having me.